Guys, the professor called us in today.
Why?
We were told we need to make a documentary.
About what?
It's about waste management and sustainability.
But Ankara is a big city. There are many districts. Where do we even start?
Ankara is a city of more than 5 million people.
Here in Altındağ, awareness activities are carried out at zero waste centers. These centers aim to show citizens that waste is not just something to throw away, but a resource that can be managed responsibly. For example, waste tires are reused to create flower pots. This is a simple but powerful example of how waste can be transformed instead of discarded. This approach reflects the principle of a circular economy, where materials are kept in use instead of becoming waste.
Next stop is Yeni Mahalle. Let's talk about how to make Ankara a more sustainable city and explore the 5 Rs. Refuse waste before it is created. Reduce single-use products. Reuse what you already have in a different way. Recycle waste into a resource. Route organic waste back to the soil. And remember, every small choice matters for a more sustainable future.
The next step is Keçiören. To better understand sustainability, it is also important to see how awareness begins through education, curiosity, and the small but meaningful steps taken at an early age.
The Sustainable Development Goals were created to deal with global challenges such as climate change, resource use, and waste. Although these goals are global, their meaning becomes clear through everyday situations. In places like schools, these connections are easier to see. Small daily habits reflect much larger pattern of consumption. One of the clearest examples is food waste. When edible food is thrown away, it is not just food that is lost. The water, energy, and labor used to produce it are also wasted. Food waste shows why responsible consumption is essential for both present and future generations. Understanding this connection is the first step towards sustainability.
Once waste leaves our homes, it does not simply disappear. It enters a multi-step waste management process. This process includes collection, transport, sorting, and handling before reaching its final treatment or disposal stage. Most citizens only see the first step. The waste truck arrives, the waste is collected, and that is where awareness usually ends, while the rest remains out of sight. However, each stage affects how waste impacts the environment. Efficiency, emissions, and material recovery all depend on how the system operates. Understanding this process helps explain why proper waste management matters. When waste is collected in mixed form, separation has to be done later in the system. This requires additional labor, time, and resources. When waste is landfilled or poorly managed, it produces greenhouse gas emissions. These emissions contribute to climate change, even though we often don't see the connection. This is why waste management is not only about cleanliness, it is an environmental and climate issue that affects all of us. When we throw something away, we often stop thinking about it, but nature needs decades to deal with them. For example, plastics does not disappear once it leaves our homes. It does not break down naturally and can remain in the environment for decades or even centuries. This is why leaving waste to nature is not a solution. Recycling only works when waste is separated correctly at the source. When waste is mixed, it loses its value as a recyclable resource. That's why plastics should go into plastic bins and paper into paper bins. Source separation is one of the most effective actions citizens can take.
In the classroom, everyday materials are used to explain how single-use waste is generated. Because these items are small and familiar, we often don't realize how much waste they can generate. People use them briefly and really think about what happens afterward. Over time, these small actions add up and become part of a much larger waste problem. Plastic bags, disposable packaging, pipettes, and food wraps are common examples. They enter our daily lives easily and are often used without much consideration. Because they are so common, their impact is easy to overlook. Cling film is a clear example we use at home, sometimes for only a few hours. It's often used to save food, but then quickly thrown away. After being thrown away, however, it becomes part of a much longer environmental story. These materials remain in the waste system long after their short use ends. Simple classroom examples help make the difference between short use and long lasting impact easier to understand.
Our survey results show how much plastic waste a single person can generate in just 1 month among METI students.
Sustainable cities are built through both individual and collective action. Using low carbon transportation, such as cycling, helps reduce emissions. Using reusable bottles and thermoses replaces countless single use plastics. By collecting used batteries at home and taking them to collection points, people in Ankara can help protect soil and water. Small actions like this show how individual choices can build shared responsibility.
Waste does not always come from excess. Sometimes it comes from routine. At home, during an ordinary moment, I reach for a medicine. And I realize that the expiration date has already passed. It remains unused and now unusable. The question becomes, what should be done with it? I think I know the answer. I reached the Zero Waste platform of Ankara Metropolitan Municipality. Here, different types of waste are clearly categorized. Expired medicines, batteries, electronic waste. The website shows how these wastes should be handled and where they can be collected. What seemed like a problem now has a clear direction.
In daily life, we often turn to packaged foods for snacking, even though fruits are a healthier, waste-free option. Out of habit, we usually choose plastic bags while shopping at markets. However, carrying a reusable cloth bag is a small but powerful choice, meaningful not only economically but also in terms of sustainability. There are times when we cannot finish a piece of fruit and want to save it for later. If throwing it away or using plastic wrap is not an option, what kind of solution can we find? Before moving directly to solutions, students are first invited to reflect on their own daily habits. They are encouraged to slow down and think about the choices they make without even noticing. Simple but powerful questions are asked. Why do we waste food? Why do we usually do when we cannot finish something? As the discussion unfolds, it becomes clear that many of our actions are driven by routine rather than intention. These moments of reflection show that awareness does not begin with rules or systems. It often begins with a simple conversation. From these discussions, simple and practical solutions begin to emerge. Instead of focusing only on the problem, attention shifts towards alternatives. Here, we are making a beeswax wrap as an alternative to plastic cling film. A piece of fabric, baking paper, scissors, beeswax, a grater, and an iron. The materials we use are simple. First, the beeswax is grated into small pieces. Then, the fabric is cut into the desired shape. The fabric is placed on baking paper, and the grated beeswax is spread evenly on top. Using an iron over the baking paper, the beeswax is melted into the fabric. After letting it cool and dry, the beeswax wrap is ready to use.
Girls, I think we did a great job. This documentary is a call to the people of Ankara.
Waste management is not only the responsibility of municipalities or institutions, it's a shared responsibility that starts with each of us.
By reducing waste, separating recyclables, avoiding single use plastics, and supporting awareness initiatives, we can build a more sustainable and resilient city.
Every choice matters, and together we can shape the future of Ankara.